1, I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education on March 22nd, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Secretary Shoeboy, will you please read the mission statement and take roll call, please?
Sure, thank you. At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community. Deb Michon is absent with notice. Angela Pizzuto?
I am participating virtually from Richmond City, Macomb County, Michigan.
I am participating remotely in Casco Township, St. Clair County, Michigan. Kyle Simmons?
Virtually City of Richmond, Macomb County.
Danielle Sutton?
Virtually from Casco in St. Clair County.
Margaret Telto?
Attending virtually in Casco Township, St. Clair County, Michigan.
And Sherry Zuby?
Attending remotely, Casco Township, St. Clair County, Michigan.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, do we have a motion for approval of agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion for approval of consent agenda.
Yes.
I motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
In support, please. Do I have support? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next,
Did we not have any discussion on the consent agenda for Mr. Walmsley?
I'm sorry, did we, Mr. Wamsley? Was there any?
We just had the recognition of the two resignations. Mr. Rhoda resigned as the assistant varsity football coach, and Mr. Schlater resigned as the JV assistant football coach. We have two hires that are still pending the interview or background checks in the hiring process. Lance Whitney, let me try that again. But he's already the soccer coach for the boys. He is for the soccer coach assistant for the girls. And Cameron Land is scheduled to be later this week, but going through all the background checks at the moment. So you can see in the attached document there are several positions still open.
So we're approving pending
Pending the
all
background
the stuff
check
goes with
and-
this Cameron Land. Okay.
Correct. Pending the background checks, all the stuff, so that he could start immediately then.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Wamsley.
You're going to need to redo the vote.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. And now for our bond update, Superintendent Wamsley, please.
Hey, a lot of progress has been made. I'll start at Lee Elementary School. The siding is starting to go up on the additions. If you've driven by, I was actually in the 4 classrooms on the south side of the building, in the front hallway where the preschool wing is. They are painted the gray with the blue instructional wall. Tile is going up in the bathroom for those additions. So we are moving full speed ahead. At the middle school, asbestos abatement was completed both in the board office as well as near the former art room and home economics room where the new middle school main office will be. So the walls have been removed, and that will be expanding that area. And so they are, like I said, they are working. It is a sealed area during the school day, so we can get that work done while students are also in class. At the high school, the robotics, it is going to be a phenomenal area, a state-of-the-art program for our robotics kids. But they started cutting the holes in the wall that will access from their new entrance to the area where all their machine equipment will be, and their the drill presses and so forth. They should be starting on the footings for the new entrance canopy for the robotics entrance very soon. This past weekend, we have delivered boxes, the first round of boxes to staff to begin packing up the stuff that they no longer use for the summer. Staff have been encouraged to take home their personal belongings, possibly over spring break or whenever it's convenient for them, because we don't want any of that damaged over the move over the summer. So a lot of planning is going through. We have a target date of April 30th to have all non-spring sports storage rooms boxed and ready to be moved out. We have been working with getting as many of the projects pulled ahead as possible, but things are on track. I think on Wednesday you'll actually see the fencing going up where the parking lot expansion will be at the middle school, because they will be able to begin working on that project to pull that project ahead also, which won't interfere with the current parking lot or the flow of traffic. So it's exciting. Things are moving ahead.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any questions for Superintendent Walmsley? Thank you. Okay, now we will move on to our presentation for extended COVID-19 learning plan. Superintendent Walmsley.
I will share the screen with you. Once a month, as required by law, we will review our COVID-19 extended COVID-19 learning plan, as the official title, as part of Section 98A of the revised school code. What I am presenting to you tonight is our two-way communication record. My recommendation to you is to continue the in-person / virtual option for parents. And then my hope is that the board will reconfirm and continue the process. So let me begin. I'll start scrolling through. The first part talks about, this is the recommendation that we will offer both in-person and virtual for pre-kindergarten students. For K-3, we will again also in-person and virtual students and continue to offer that. The middle school, in-person and virtual students, or in-person and virtual option for students. And the high school also in-person and virtual option for students. As we scroll through the document, public comment will be added. I just want to reference that I did follow up with the parent who spoke at the previous board meeting about the system Rochester Hills uses, or Rochester Community Schools, excuse me. It is a system that they use for athletics and events, but they do not use it for all students as they enter the building. They use the same system that we do. Their expectation is that parents do not send their students to school with symptoms, and if they are showing symptoms, to keep them home. But for events and for athletes, they do use a online system. I scroll through and I go to the month of March's presentation, which would be what has been the two-way communication since the last time we presented, which would be February 15th. You can see that week we averaged as a district 97.75%. This is the week we had winter break, that week, scheduled week. February 22nd through the 23rd, we were averaging 99.17. And just to remember, the two-way communication is the students have 2 present codes at some point during the school week. It could be first hour for a high school student, and first hour on Monday and 5th hour on Friday. And as long as they have 2 present codes, they're considered to be present. March 1st through March 5th, we were nearing 100%, 99.1%. And March 8th through 12th, we were around 99.16. So when we come back in April, we'll present the week of March as well as the first week of spring break. I believe that is it. All the monthly submissions have been sent to the state as required, what our learning plan is. So at this time, I would ask that the board entertain any public comment regarding the plan, or if they have any questions themselves about the plan before you do public comment. But my recommendation is we continue the plan as we have been doing for the month of February and prior.
Any questions from board members?
I had a
Brian, I
question.
have two questions. Go ahead.
All right. I had emailed Brian earlier regarding kind of how everything is going with our district as compared to the others. I mean, Anchor Bay shut down for a couple days this week for the high school, and I know, St. Clair County's got a ton of districts that are now virtual, essentially for only 5 school days, just because of spring break. But just curious on how we compare to that, or if that's even on the radar.
It's something that we do. Am I getting an echo here? It's something that we do watch and look for. There's two variables that make, or I would say at least one variable that makes ours different from the other districts that have shut down. When we do our contact tracing, oftentimes, I would guesstimate 9 out of 10 times, the contact tracing goes back to an event that has been outside of school.
Right.
It might have been a party on the weekend and so forth. When I talked to the superintendent in Anchor Bay, actually he and I just talked again today, they've actually determined that they've done some contact tracing where kids have been exposed to other kids within the school. So to stop the spread of being within the school, they've taken a pause. I have not spoken to the superintendents up in St. Clair, but typically when school districts are at that point, it's because they're starting to identify the spread is happening because of contact within the school. We have not been definitively able to say that is the cause of when students have tested positive or others have been exposed. It's because of a school event. In most cases, it's because of an outside school event. As in Macomb County, we had an emergency meeting today, we actually with the health department, because the largest group that's on the rise is high school students. The percentage of students that are increasing is significant. And I know Fraser reported today that they had 9 cases positive just today alone at their high school. We've been averaging, I would say, depending on the day of, we've been hitting kind of a lot of exposures, 1 a day type of thing in terms of I'm doing now a letter at the end of the week because it's been, as soon as I start typing the letter, there's an administrator bringing in contact tracing forms and so forth. And it's almost impossible to keep up. But we haven't had the significant positive cases that we found that other districts are reporting. When I look at some districts are looking at, there is a concern with spring break coming up. When we had to shut down last time, it was because we did not have the staff. Our staff were exposed or at a positivity rate. It's kind of the flip now. We really don't have the staff that have been exposed and are shorthanded from that angle. It's more on the student spread. So I just can't encourage the students and parents and staff enough to just keep following what we're doing to keep the social distancing, keep the mask on. I know there's been some recent sporting events we've had that we've got to do a better job as an organization to remind families and parents and spectators, we're here for the kids, and if we want to play, we got to keep the mask on so we're not spreading stuff. And so to go back to answer your question, we have been in communication. I think the difference is they've been able to identify the trace or the exposure and the contact within the school, where we're not seeing that as in our district.
Okay, thanks.
Brian, how many virtual students do we still have?
We have about 10% of our population, so we're about 140 40, 50 virtual students. As of right now, in addition to that 150 virtual students, we have a little over 100 students on quarantine district-wide right now.
And when is the next time if they wanted to come back to face-to-face?
When we come back after spring break, April 12th, the end of the card marking, the third card marking, and I can't believe I'm saying the end of the third card marking already, is April 1st, a week from this Thursday. It's a half a day. And then we switch to the card marking. And we do have some students that are virtual now that are planning to come back at the card marking break.
Okay. Okay. And do we, if I'm a virtual student and I want help from a teacher, say at the high school level, we're not keeping a student out because they're virtual. They can come in to get help from a teacher, correct?
If that's what they need, if they need that person, yes. There's nothing, unless they've been exposed, and that's why they're virtual.
Right.
That's a different story. But
Right.
if I just chosen virtual, they get help. My guess is, and it's typically a guess, it would be they'd start, can we help virtually or remotely for convenience sake for the student as well as the teacher's access. But if the student needs to come in to get help from the teacher, that's what they need to work out with the teacher.
So we would never turn a student away for that.
We should not be turning any student away who needs help.
Okay. That's it, Angela. That's my questions.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, now is our portion. We'll open it up for public comment. This is just regarding our COVID learning plan. Would anybody like to make a comment?
I do not see any hands raised, but I know people can turn off turn on their microphone if they want to speak too, but I don't see any hands raised, Angela.
Okay, one final call. Anybody out there? All right, thank you. We will move on then. And we will come back and reconfirm this and our action item, correct, Superintendent Wamsley?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
the action item.
Thank you. Next is the portion of public comment for our meeting. If anyone would like to make a comment, you have 3 minutes to make a comment. This is not a question and answer portion. If you need your answer, if you need an answer to your question, we will be happy to get back with you. If you could just email either Superintendent Wamsley or I I am Apacito K12 at Richmond K12 Michigan.us if you would like to contact me that way. Anybody would like to make a public comment?
Again, I don't see any hands in the participant list.
Great, thank you. Okay, next we will move on to our portion of superintendent and legislative update. Superintendent Wamsley?
All right, thank you. I'm going to start with the legislative update. Last Thursday, to a surprise educational community, both public and private schools, a group of senators introduced several bills in the Senate, Michigan Senate, and it's called the Grand Education Package. There are many items that are in these bills that, as superintendents, we have previously discussed, from the third grade retention to evaluation to assessments from the current year. They've also included in these bills new requirements, a commission that would be appointed to decide the fate of the MSTEP in future years, which I find it ironic because in the last 6 years, we've gone from MEP to MSTEP, and now we're looking at some other assessment if passed. Some of these proposals are conceptually, in the broadest sense, supported by the education community. But again, none of this was even, usually when a bill is introduced, it's kind of vetted through education groups, whether it's superintendents or whether it's the MEA or whether it's the charter schools or whatever, to kind of see the impact and look at what the impact of bills may have, both positive and negative. some of the buildings are. All of the buildings are tide barred together, so it's basically an all or nothing type package. But House Bill 56 was by Representative Hornberger, which is from our area. It actually changes on the teacher evaluation rating scales from 4 categories: highly effective, effective, minimally effective, and ineffective, to just 3 categories. You are either effective, emerging, or ineffective. It permanently moves the student growth requirement as part of the evaluation from the 40% that's currently down to 25%, which is what it was when student growth was put into the teacher evaluation. It alters the formula for student growth. 50%, it goes from 50% state assessments and 50% local assessment to 100% local assessments this year, and then it returns to the 50-50 formula for next year. It expressly allows to use a benchmark assessment in how we report the student data link. So that has a lot of positive aspects on it that we, as an education group, would support. Another bill, Senate Bill 57, also by Representative Horn, talked about the administrator evaluation, which again moves the 4 categories down to 3 categories, moves the student growth from 40% to 25%, and again allows benchmark assessments to be used. And then there's a Senate Bill 260, which actually changes in other parts of the legislation and School Aid Act, that the categories are all 3 categories rather than 4 categories for evaluating. Senate Bill 261, it's waiving the MME and offering SAT. This bill would amend the school code to waive the MME requirements that are currently required on the spring 2021 assessment. Schools are required to still offer the SAT. The bill requires that if the SAT is offered in the summer or fall, that school districts must offer that opportunity to their students to take the SAT at that point as well. Senate Bill 261, again, it's another section of the School Aid Act, which would amend the School Aid to waive the M-STEP, MME, Work Keys, WIDA for the spring of 2021. Many of these, even though it would pass, would still need to be approved by the federal government in what they allow for the annual assessments as required by ESSA. Senate Bill 263 addresses CEPI benchmark assessments and the teacher-student data link. If you recall, the student data is sent up to the state, and they make a connection so that for every teacher, you can see what students have been tied to that teacher, as well as for every administrator tied to their building. So this has when you start messing with the data that is sent up to the state regarding CEPI, this raises a lot of concerns in terms of what we're sending the state and if there's any overreach of that. Senate Bill 264 establishes what's called an assessment committee as a permanent entity to replace the functions at the MDE, and it's made up of appointees from the House, the Senate, and the governor. This is concerning on that face alone, just because it can become political rather than what's in the best interest of our students and schools. Because when you become appointees, usually the majority party, whatever that is, allows for those appointees to get in, and there's sometimes can be personal agenda. But basically, the commission would be responsible for creating a RFI, a request for proposals, for a new statewide assessment for grades 3 through 8 to replace the M-STEP. And they would actually have the ISD, one of the ISDs would become the fiduciary for all the funding related to the assessment and moving forward, rather than the MDE. Much of that is being looked at and watched carefully. Senate Bill 265 would delay the implementation of the 3rd grade reading retention law until the school year 21-22. If you recall, several years ago, the Senate passed, or the state passed, and governor signed under Governor Snyder, the 3rd grade retention law, which if you did not pass basically the state assessment, you were to be retained in 3rd grade. Since that law has passed, There's been some freezes on when it's been implemented. And with last year, no M-STEP assessment being given last year, there was a freeze to hold it till this year. So it will be interesting where this one goes, because they want to delay it one more year and implement it in the 21-22 school year. Senate Bill 266 is called the Individual Academic Assessment and Recovery Plan. It would basically require every school to compile benchmark assessment data on each student and submit a snapshot of each child's current academic performance as to where they should be without COVID impacts to their parents by May 15th of this year. What this looks like, we don't know. We do something already similar with our NWA. We provide a snapshot to parents of where their child scored compared to students nationally. It also requires every student from the every teacher from this school year to develop a learning plan recovery for each student for every subject they taught that student in the 2021 school year and send that to parents by August 14th. Again, I question what the purpose of this, because we already communicate collectively as an organization, as well as other districts, students' progress. So again, this would, to me, it's a lot of red tape and additional duties that I don't know really where it's going to go or what their intent is. Senate Bill 267 is an attempt to address the substitute teacher shortage. And I'll just pause. If anybody out there is currently looking for a position, we are accepting substitute teachers. This bill would allow any current employee who does not have the qualifications to be a substitute to substitute teach if they have been working in the district for more than 3 years. So you may not have the current qualifications to be a substitute. This bill would say as long as you work in the district for 3 or more years, you could substitute in a classroom. And the last one, Senate Bill 268, it's called the Optional Student Retention. This would provide the parents the express authority for their students to undergo retention and retake the grade if they were the grade they were in for the 2021 school year. Parents would have to notify schools by July 1st, 2021 if they would like to be their child retained. Schools may retain students after June 1st. So there's a lot more information that we're looking for, more details on these bills. The interesting part of this are some of these bills dealt with the current statewide assessments that are coming up right after spring break. Assume the legislature or the Senate takes these up and votes on them to move the bills to the House. That would happen this year. Both houses of legislature are on pause for next week and the week of spring break. So the earliest the House would be able to take these bills up would be Tuesday, April 12th, which is Tuesday, April 13th, which would be the day we're actually giving the SAT assessment at the high school. So, and some of the other assessments that are referenced in some of these bills. So that would be the absolute earliest that the action would be taken. So that's it for the legislature. So it was kind of a surprise Thursday. We talked as a superintendent's group, we talked about it a little on Friday. And again, today, the impact of these bills. So stay tuned. There's a lot of policies that are looking to be changed, both from the Senate and potentially the House. As a district,
Brian?
Yep.
I had a question.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
I had a question. Did you say those bills are all or nothing?
They are tie-barred together, so they all have to pass together if it's going to go through.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Brian, this isn't just, it's not a COVID related bill trying to do things for this school year. This is for going forward. So like for the testing and that, so we're going to prepare our kids, we're going to make them take the tests, but then we're working on a bill that's going to waive it. Is that what you're saying they're doing?
That is what they're looking to amend the School Aid Act. The challenge is the federal government has approved our assessment plan, and I know there was State Superintendent Rice did submit a request to not take the state assessments this year. That was denied at the federal government. So there have been some appeals to get local assessments to be used. In our case, it might be NWA. Other districts may use other assessments, but these bills are intended for this year. So, at some point, like take the third grade reading, at some point this year, we have to contact parents by law, whether they're going to be retained, looking at the assessment. And, the current law says that by June 1st, the Center for Educational Performance Indicators, CEPI is what it's often called to, notifies parents that their child would be retained. Now that really, if we're going to retain a child, that really should be a conversation between the school, the parent, and the teacher, particularly on what's in the best interest of that child. Someone who's up in Lansing, who's looking at numbers and so forth, has no idea about what this child has done, but can tell you what they did on a specific test score. So that the current law is flawed. However,
Well, so's this ridiculous bill, this Pamela Hornberger, who doesn't have a clue about education and what's going on. This is ridiculous. How do you propose something when you're in the middle of getting kids ready to test and teachers and all the work? It's so ridiculous. People ought to vote her out of office tomorrow. Terrible. She's clueless.
It is challenging for us, and I just keep my message to the administrative team and the teachers: keep doing the good things you're doing in the classroom. Focus on the strategies, the instructional strategies that we know works. The assessment, we will follow the letter of the law, but we've got a lot of leeway in how we implement how we use those assessment results. Our results are going to be with the relationships teachers have with students and what they do in the classroom and how they engage students. That's where we're going to show the progress. And so,
I'm not saying we can't show progress. I'm not even.
Oh no, these bills they're very frustrating because as a classroom teacher, if you think about this year, and you guys have lived it with going through these return to learning plans every month, we started almost a year ago. Well, a year ago we shut down school. Very little new direction. We put something together to get us through the end of the school year, which we did an outstanding job for a day's notice to shut schools down. And the teachers stepped up to create the best packets they could. We met as a team over the summer and created a program that, okay, this was what can work for Richmond. Our teachers have modeled two learning platforms, a virtual and in-person. Our administrators are contact tracing every day. And when you look at what's now being proposed that they may change, to me, this is a slap in the face to the educational community that you're going to do this now.
Of course it is.
With all the time and energy that our staff have devoted to trying to create some normalcy for our kids. It's very frustrating. So again, my message to the administrative team and the teachers is keep doing the good work you're doing. I'll fight this with the other superintendents at our end. You focus on the classroom where you can make the biggest impact, because I think that's what our parents want. They want the person caring about their child, not some test score that's being sent to Lansing. So.
And call or email Pamela Clueless Hornberger about the bills that she thinks
let's
are a
move
good
on.
idea.
Let's move on.
No, I'm not moving on, Angela.
Okay,
it's ridiculous.
From the board
and we need to make a statement. We need to make a statement about it.
Okay,
excuse me?
The boards are next, and then you can make your statement if you would like there, I suppose.
No, I'm done making my statement, but it's okay to say legislators don't do their jobs because they don't.
Sure it is, but we don't need to name call, please. Thank you.
Sure, I didn't name call. I said she was clueless. That's not name call. That's factual based on the bill she wants to put together.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next
writer.
Are we all set, Superintendent Wamsley?
I just want to give a quick update on the district. That was kind of the most legislative we've had in a long time. Since our last board meeting, we have welcomed the class of 2035 on March 10th, as well as the class of 2034 and 34, 35, and 36, kindergarten and preschoolers. And I want to just congratulate the staff. They did an outstanding job putting together a virtual program for our students. I mentioned at the last board meeting, we have locked in Jimmy John's Field for graduation. We are going to provide a graduation ceremony. It will be outdoors. little different than a normal traditional setting for graduation, like a theater or venue. But we will have an all class of 2020 graduation. Information has gone out and will continue to go out to parents. I just want to remind parents, it's at 6 o'clock, not 7. Usually graduation is at 7. It's at 6 o'clock, so make sure it's on your calendars. Again, we'll be sending out more information. After spring break, as I said, we start the assessments for MSTEP, PSAT, work keys. Each grade level has varying weeks that there's been blocked out and when they can test. Students are not being tested every day. There may be a grade level that's being tested, but not a student is not being tested every single day. So Mrs. Era is going to be sending out a letter to the community regarding with the testing schedule so that parents know what's coming up. Real quick, there has been a slight change there to the 2021 calendar. Tuesday, June 9th will be a half day of school rather than a full day of school. And exams will begin on Tuesday, June 9th. And semester exams will be on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that week rather than Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. A copy of the revised calendar is going to go to home to families prior to spring break, as well as the principals will send in their spring break message or however it's crafted. They'll just have a reminder also. As I said, we're a little over, and finally I have one last thing. As I've said earlier, we're a little over 100 students that are quarantined. Prior to the board meeting, I was going to tell you 85, but I got a call from one of our buildings. We got 15 more there on the list. So we are a little over 100 or about 100 and plus. With the schools being closed during the holidays and past breaks, I know there's been a lot of family who've canceled plans, who've altered their vacation schedules, haven't seen family members, and it's almost like we're starting to go stir crazy in our house. I just encourage families to be careful. We want to continue the rest of the school year in person for those of families that choose it. When you travel, the risk increases. Make sure you take care of yourself and the students take care of yourselves. Wear your face mask, follow the guidelines for CDC that recommends when you travel. And if you have any questions, go to the CDC the guidelines, and at least get some guide points and so forth. We all have to work together if we want to stay in person, and I think we can do it, but we just have to be cautious. We've almost successfully completed a full school year in person in a pandemic, so excited that we can do this, but we just need to be careful. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, next is the portion of our meeting for items of interest from the Board of Education. Would anybody like to speak?
I was in Lee Elementary this morning reading, as most of you have already done. Just wanted to thank all the teachers that signed up to have me come in. I think I got educated more than I did any educating. Miss Mangan's class is studying planets, so they were giving me some fun facts on those. And Mrs. Barrett's class is studying the state of Michigan, so now I know our state bird and our flower and reptile and all that good stuff. And Miss Durst is... her kids are making tree houses in Minecraft, and that's all way over my head, but looks really fun for the kids. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Kyle. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to say I read on Friday as well, and I worked a half a day and then read, and there's nothing like reading at the elementary school. It's good for your soul. The kids are great, and yes, I was in Mrs. Durst's class and saw the Minecraft and the tree houses, and I had to explain to the kids I really didn't know what Minecraft was, and they thought I was from another planet. So it was cool, but thanks to the teachers, and it's always one of the most fun things to be able to do as a board member is read in those classrooms.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Next, we move on to our portion of our meeting for our action items. We're looking for approval of amendment to confirmation to the extended COVID-19 learning plan. We just went through that. Do we have a motion? Anybody willing to make a motion?
Is it the option 2?
Yeah.
Is
If
Okay.
you don't want to make any changes, option 2.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent as presented in the attached documentation and approve the extended COVID-19 learning plan for the 2020-21 school year as it was originally approved and amended on November 9th and November 23rd to include a revised school calendar and virtual learning schedule outlined in the attached documentation. This action confirms how instruction is to be delivered, provided an opportunity for parents and our guardians to provide public comment on the plan, and reported the weekly two-way interaction rates to date.
Or
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next we move to approval of amendment to confirmation of pay to participate fee. Superintendent Watson?
Yeah, it was brought to my attention. I have not received any personal complaints from parents. However, I have heard about some concerns regarding what parents are currently paying in the pay to participate fee compared to what they paid last year, which is the same rate. But the number of competitions that they have been scheduled this year versus last year may be less for some sports. And in the backup, you'll see, I do not have the spring schedule finalized for Mr. Reinhardt this year. There was no spring season basically last year because of the shutdown. But you can see by sport in the backup that there are some sports that, based on the scheduled competitions, may only have 30, 40, 50%. There are some sports, though few, had 100% the same number. So the question came up, or the concern that was raised was, should there be a change in the pay to participate fee to respond to the reduced competition? I just want to reiterate to the board that the actual cost of athletics to the district that was approved in the February budget, I believe budget amendment 2, is $497,472. That includes payroll for all coaches. It includes part of Mr. Reinhardt's salary in there. It includes part of secretarial salary, officials, transportation, maintenance of the field, grass cutting, striping that we did, supplies that the district purchases, paid tournament fees. So that totals a lot. So the pay to participate generally only, and I say only very lightly because it is a lot of money, it generates $55,000 to offset the sports costs. It does not pay for athletics. And so I think that's an important point for not only the board to keep in mind, but also the listening audience. So, it's a consideration. We can either do nothing and continue the pay to participate fee. Spring sports, I believe, started today, actually practices. So students are there. If we do nothing, I think by the first game, they have to have their pay to participate fee paid. We could look at doing a proration. You could do it across the board. What's the average for everybody and just give everybody the same? Or we could look at it by sport. Or given the situation, you could eliminate the pay to participate fee. If you choose the last option, knowing that's about $55,000 in lost revenue every year. Another point to consider is when I was not here when pay to play participated, but having been part of the discussion for many years, there's been board members who've always had a concern or at least wanted to bring it to the attention to have parents have an opportunity to work off pay to participate fees. They may be able to pay them, but it's a lot of money. And for some families, they need that money. So they would volunteer at concessions and so forth. This year, there really hasn't been an opportunity to volunteer to work that off. So families that really would regularly volunteer to get reimbursed that pay to participate fee didn't really have the option to do that this year. And so these are things that, though we did talk about pay to participate as a collective whole when we did the budget last year, and we adjusted the gate receipts this year when we did the first budget amendment because we weren't collecting gate receipts, so there's another loss in revenue. I'm going to be honest, it did not dawn on me to prorate or even consider or bring that up to the board. So that's really how we got to this point for the board to consider. And, I see there's basically 4 options for the board to consider. If you have others, I'd be willing to entertain that, obviously. I'm looking for where you want me to go with this in response to some, I think Mr. Reinhardt has now, I think he might be up to 4 parents that have contacted him with some concern. Most of them have been from the winter sports season. I don't believe, and if he told me, I might not remember that they're from the actual spring, but coming up spring. But I think our spring sports teams are just happy to be playing because they did not get a season last year. But so that's where we are. I'm looking for some direction from the board. I did have the ability to eliminate the gate receipts because in the bylaws of the BWAC conference, we all agreed to do that together. So at the BWAC, all the schools eliminated. I do not have the authority to unilaterally, remove a revenue that the board approved a budget that you're expecting. So if you're planning on adjusting it or eliminating it, it would have to take the action of the board. That's all I have at this point, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I guess it should be everyone needs to have an opinion on. There's 4 options in the thought process on what we want to do going forward.
Does anybody already have, do you lean some way, certain way? Margaret, Board Member Telto, do you have a certain option that you feel more strongly about than the others?
Well, I definitely, the 4th option of refunding the pay to participate to the families, I think I would definitely lean towards that with the COVID year and all of that, and if we're able to do it. And I also think we need to, we haven't had any budget talks yet this year, and I don't understand why we haven't, but we haven't. And I think if we're going to talk about permanently eliminating pay to play, which has been around for 35 years, can we do it? And I know Brian mentioned some things, some different, the enhancement millage money, that kind of stuff. I would love to see us be able to move in a direction to not have to pay to play. And if it's for a certain amount of time, something like that, I think that would be great. But I don't know if that's a conversation to have tonight or if it's a conversation to have once we do get to budget talks. But for tonight, I would be interested in refunding the pay to participate to the families.
Okay, for this current year so far is what you're thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any opinion? Or somewhere?
Yeah, I have a question. Like, did we waive the fees for the 2020 seasons? The fall, I know the spring didn't happen. How about fall of 2020? Did we waive fees? No.
No, the fall of 2020 for fall sports. You're talking for the 2021 school year, the current school year.
Yes.
No, they paid their pay to participate.
The full amount.
To participate fee, the full amount for the fall and for winter.
Okay, and some of the sports played their full season.
Yeah, if you look at on that chart,
Yeah.
there are some.
Yeah.
There are some you can kind of get a percentage, and I didn't include. I asked Mr. Reinhardt not to include, postseason because that's a bonus, if you will, if you make it that far. Just what is the regular schedule, and you can see some had less, some had about the same. So,
I guess my thought on it is, I know this year is different last year and this year with COVID, and not having the ability to work off your pay to play. I mean, and I guess, but there wasn't a need for volunteers, or they just weren't, the opportunities weren't there.
We don't have concessions this year.
Okay.
The volunteers that we use as a district are very limited. It's like it would be gates collecting money and tickets,
And
which we don't
waive
have.
that.
It might be the clock, or it might be the chain gang at the football game. It's very limited what the district needs to support that. But majority of them with concessions, because that's a primary revenue for our
Yeah.
boosters. So there's very
think-
few opportunities.
I'll be teetering towards this year possibly waiving, but possibly prorating per the sport. That's my thought. And as far as the future, I guess I'm thinking the volunteering part to pay off your pay to play is a big thing, because I know they can't always get people to help with concessions and or help with the clock, or, you know, for track, there's a lot of volunteers needed. So I think having to pay to play, but having the option to work it off gives you those people to help you make the programs run. So I would not want to get rid of it totally, because I know some people will can work it off, others can't, and then just don't mind paying the fee. So that's kind of where I'm thinking for this year. I'm thinking possibly prorating, and for the future, I'm thinking of keeping the fee. Whether it stays the same or not is a discussion we can have, but keeping it just so that we can get those volunteers to help make concessions run, make the sports where you need the volunteers run.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I kind of,
Oops, sorry, Danielle, go ahead.
sorry, I think I have a delay today. I'm kind of leaning towards doing a proration, but I don't feel like, I don't know if it's as cut and dry as the percentage of the season that's going to end up being played as games, because you have other costs that go into that as opposed to just the games. I feel like for example, like my son's soccer, they played the fall, but they're not playing spring, but they're not getting 50% back. We're getting more like 15 or 20% because of outside costs of uniforms and, you know, socks and this and that and the other, and bringing people in. So he's not really getting 50% back, even though he only had 50% of his games were played. So I don't know if it's as cut and dry as percentage of a season, or that would be, you know, an easy way to go, but we could be shortchanging ourselves a little bit doing it that way.
We don't provide uniforms, do we?
Yes, we do for basketball, middle school basketball anyway.
And most sports, they raise the funds to themselves to purchase the uniform.
Right.
There are some sports, as Angela said, like middle school, that we provide them a jersey. Sometimes it might be the hand-me-down from a varsity or an older team down, but depending on the size.
But most of our teams self-fund
Correct.
a lot of the stuff that they have. They get it.
I can
not
easily
really
say,
from us.
I could probably easily say, and maybe even on low, 95% of the supplies that a team has, the equipment, the balls, is done by the self-funding for the team. The uniforms, the so forth. There's very little supplies. It may be a large purchase item that the district may have. You know, if a basketball net breaks, we got to fix it. If the sound system goes, that's our cost. We don't ask the team to do that. We may provide tennis balls for the tennis team, but they really provide their own. Majority of the cost is the team fundraising.
So really our cost is coaches' salaries and officials.
Correct. And if we have busing to transport, then the
Okay.
busing, that's really the main cost. And that when you look at the payroll, remember, for every $1 we pay out in payroll, about 50 cents goes to FICA and retirement. So
Right.
That's a hidden cost that nobody really sees, but it's a cost to the district.
Okay. Go ahead, board member.
Yes, thank you. I'm more for going in the direction of number one. I currently have a freshman daughter that participated in volleyball, and I was just thankful as a parent that she had a season. She's also going to be participating in softball, which tryouts start tomorrow. And then again, I'm okay with paying the pay to play. I'm just very thankful that the kids are able to participate. So that's how I would lean.
Okay. All right. Board Member Simmons, anything to add?
I have also paid a pay to participate fee. I have relatives that have, in the interest of full disclosure. I would be for option 4. I would love to get rid of it altogether, but I'll be the first person to tell you that playing any extracurricular or being involved in any extracurricular is a privilege. But I think if there's a way in our budget to make it work, that getting rid of that fee would be a great thing. I do share Sherry's concern with volunteers, but I think any year beyond this year is a budget discussion. And if the numbers work, then it's something the 7 of us can figure out at that time. I just think with the differing lengths of seasons, some people only got to play 8 games. And Danielle, I get it, because we're paying coaches full price, whether or not they coached, half their season or all their season.
Right.
I just think I would like to see it. At the very worst, I would want to prorate it based on the average that all of our teams played throughout the season or throughout the year. But I would be for number 4 of getting rid of it.
Okay. And if we did prorate Superintendent Wamsley, would the members in the fall, were they affected in any way? Would they be reimbursed in some way?
Yeah, if you did a proration, we would do a reimbursement check, much like we would do a reimbursement check when they volunteer for an activity, because they pay their full fee up front, and then at the end of the season, we issue the reimbursement for volunteers. So we'd have to go back and look at the fall and the winter sport that's in the process of ending now. So.
Okay. All right. I'm probably most comfortable with prorating at the moment as well, by sport, depending on what sports. My son also was participating in middle school basketball this year and was affected by some of the COVID issues. And I still feel that he got plenty from the program. And I also think that we're not taking into account all the extra money we are spending as far as cleaning that is required with the COVID requirements and such. So there are extra, funds that we are paying into athletics this year, even though some of our students are not participating in a full season. So I would be most comfortable with prorating this year. And then, of course, as far as ending pay to participate permanently, I do also agree that would be a budget talk. So I'm not sure where that ends. I think that ends with some of us thinking prorating and some for the whole year. And I just had one more question, Superintendent Wamsley. With parents not being able to work off pay to participate, they may not be able to even afford the prorated. Is there an option for them to still come to the school and we could give them a waiver on a person by person basis this year?
We have done that since I've been here, and even before that. If there's a family that's in need, we do not want the pay to participate fee to prevent someone who really wants to play. We'll figure out a way. We've used donations we've gotten, we've paid for it out of internal accounts at the building level. The athletic internal account, when they get some dollars maybe back from pitchers and so forth. If we know about it, we're going to help a student out if they're in need. So.
Can I just ask Brian, what extra money have we paid out for athletics this year, and for cleaning? Didn't we get COVID dollars for the cleaning and stuff? So what extra stuff did it cost us for our athletic department?
The first round of the CARES money, which we got last year, we did buy the containers and the spray equipment. Anything that we're purchasing going forward to refill those up, we're either getting through ABM, our custodial services, or having to purchase it. So we did use CARES dollars there. There is more time that it takes staff to, make sure they're practicing and documenting if there's positive cases or making sure they contact traced who was around the student if they were at practice and so forth. So from a time element, there's more things that our coaches are doing this year than they've done in the past. For those that are currently testing and now going forward, we are testing all student athletes once a week based on the latest Department of Health and Human Services order. We aren't paying for those kits, but we have the time to get those kits from the ISD. You've got the time that someone's got to enter it into a database. You know, in a school like ours, it's a little more manageable. A school of 2,000 high school kids, I don't know how some of them are entering this stuff in the database without having a person that's their sole job, or at least a good chunk of their job. So I would say if you look at the time it takes people to do things, that's been increased this year.
But we aren't paying any extra dollars.
Nobody's
to
getting any
coaches.
nobody's
We're not
getting
giving
any
coaches
extra
more money.
No, nobody's getting more money than what they're contractually on the salary matrix that a coach would get for a sport.
Okay. And what's the if we gave all the money back, what is that dollar figure? I know you said the 55,000.
That's what we budgeted for.
Right.
I believe we
24,000.
24 is what we've captured so far to date.
24,000.
Yeah. So we were going to be under our budgeted assumption, or on track to be under our budgeted assumption. 55 is typically what we've budgeted in the past years, and we've really kind of rolled over unless there's a significant that we've eliminated a sport and we know we're not going to get it. That's usually the target number that we have.
Okay, so $24,000 if we gave all the money back. So because Angela, you have 3 people that want to do a prorate. So we'd have to determine what are we going to prorate? How much are we going to give? So how much money is that going to be?
The proration, I believe the average was about 74%. So we would give roughly 25% of the fee back.
18th, yeah. 6,000.
That's
So
if we-
150, 25% is 3750 person back. If they paid at the high school, I think middle school is 120. So you're talking about 30 bucks back.
So a total of how much?
6,000.
6,000?
Yeah, it's about
Ballpark.
6,000. If we've collected 25% of that is about $6,000 back.
Okay.
At this point.
That's if we just did 25% across the board.
Correct. If we just did everybody in recognition that this has been a unique year, regardless of how many sports you've had, you were able to play. That's a flat yes.
What do you think the number would be if we did it by the sport? I know that's a big mathematical figure. That's going to take some time to figure out. But could we get that number too before we, not tonight, but
yeah, what I would
before
do
we
is like,
decide.
for instance, take bowling for example. They've only played 41% of their season, so I would take basically 41% times the 150 they paid. You know, it's going to be a little more than $75 that they'll get back. But you look at like competitive cheer, 50%, they're going to get $75 back. But you look at boys tennis, they had 100% of their schedule. They're not getting anything back if you did it by season. So I could just take that percentage and multiply it by either 120 or 150.
A number of players. They got those teams that are
And
smaller
then
than
you
the
multiply
football
by the
team.
number of players that are on the team. So, you know, correct.
So if that's the direction the board wants to go, and you have 3 people tonight that are saying they do, then you got to tell Brian how you want it to go in order to move forward tonight.
what do you mean?
Is it
Whether you want
possible
it-
to
whether you
just
want it by-
table it until next time?
Yeah, I mean, can we get the information and not necessarily have to vote on it tonight? I mean, it is still a budget talk for the whole decision, especially if anyone's considering option 4.
Well, we don't have the majority of the board considering option 4, so that's not on the table. What you have on the table is to prorate. So if that's the idea that the board wants to prorate, then we just have to decide if you want to do it by sport, if you want to say you're given 50% back, whatever, just pick that and decide. And that would be what we would do. And then anything we want to do going forward after this COVID year would be what we would talk about when we start talking about our budget for next year.
Okay, I prefer to prorate by sport if possible.
I do too.
And then we also have the option that is if parents cannot afford to pay their pay to participate, they are allowed to come to the school, contact the athletic director, is that who they would contact? And then the fee could be waived if you need to, without any explanation, correct? Or is there criteria that they need to meet?
We would look at the individual families, and maybe someone that we know. If it's someone that we knew, that would just become, it's a private conversation.
Sure.
I never know who is the person that's waived, or, we've actually had sports teams that have paid out of the money they've raised, pay to participate for their team or kids on their team, and they want to keep it that level. It is a confidential. We're not gonna share that information. So.
And Angela, just so you know, there's never been a family that if you haven't been able to, that you couldn't participate because of the dollars. It has been figured out some way over the years, somehow, some way.
Good to hear. I know sometimes it's with free and reduced lunch, so I just want to make sure that all options are available. So.
There for those families that are on free or reduced lunch, there is a reduced rate that is currently, that's on the website, that that is a reduced rate. But I was referencing families that don't qualify for free or reduced lunch, but maybe struggling, they just don't have the cash or the dollars to pay it at this point. We'll work with them. We'll figure out a way. We don't want to turn kids away.
So Brian, you said that some, like the high school might take it out of an internal fund, or teams might pay for their athletes pay to participate fee. So if we do this proration, will that your internal fund get reimbursed? Will your sports, your sports boosters get refunded also?
That would be the intent. We'd have to track back who actually paid on that sport. See, right now, Judy, who does the accounts payable, could pull off a list of who paid it in the system. If the boosters, let's just say, the baseball group, because I just saw Kyle with baseball, sorry. If they paid for Brian Walmsley to play on the team, and they listed all my stuff as Brian Walmsley and put it in as a district, I wouldn't know that they paid. I would only know if they listed in the system, the baseball association or the wrestling association or the tennis group or whatever. If it's the individual person's name.
But wouldn't the athletic director, he would know?
Yeah, I would have to sit down with Chris and say, okay, here's what we have. Yeah. Here's who we know has paid. Are you aware of any? Reach out to your coaches. Are you aware of any teams that have paid pay to participate for individual? And we would go. It's not going to be something that's going to be done tomorrow. It's going to take a couple weeks for us to go through and check, because we want to get the money back to the group that, whether you prorated or refunded it, to the group that paid it.
Yeah.
And I know we may even have families that say, something, I don't want my money back, and donate it to the basketball group or the wrestling group, or maybe they want to put it to the school or something. We will have that. And so we'll work with those families if they want to donate it, or put it in a pot so that if future kids can't afford it, we've got an internal account just specifically for this.
Okay, so do we have an option? Is there the option? Which one is that? Option 3?
You've got 2 people that want that so far.
Okay.
Bridget, nobody was with you on option 1. So where do you stand on 2 and 3?
I would be 2.
That one's by sport?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, for all sports.
The same percentage across. That's where I am. I'm the same percentage across all sports.
Okay.
I really wish this could be tabled, but
I would do option 2.
What's the rationale, just those of you who chose to do it for all sports as opposed to by sport? Because like football has 100% and bowling has 40%, but football's going to get money back and bowling's essentially going to kind of be shorted. So what's the thought process there?
I guess for me, just if one group got luckier than the other, I mean, it just, we're all athletes or all people involved in extracurriculars. And I just think if you're giving money back, everyone should get the same amount.
Goodwill.
Danielle, you just made that number up as an example, right? Because I want to make sure the listening audience, because football did not have 100%.
Oh,
Right.
no, I don't
I
even
just want
have
to
it
make
in
sure
front
for
of me.
anybody listening out there, there was football had a shortened season, so.
No, I have the motions up on my screen. I don't
Okay.
even have those
Okay.
tables.
I would say the argument on 2 for all sports is just a general recognition, it's a different year. The argument for by sport is some sports were impacted more.
Yep.
Just it's a more of a
Goodwill.
So are we at a tie here, 3 and 3?
I think so.
Maybe we do need to table it.
Well, if we do for all sports, you're saying that only each athlete, so each athlete or each pay to participate fee would get $30 back. That's approximate.
approximately, yeah. We'd have, and then for those that are paying in the spring, we would just reduce what they're paying in, similar to what we did for the fall and winter, the refund.
You said that would cost us $6,000.
If it's roughly 25%, we've collected about 24,000, so about a fourth of that is about $6,000.
I would be willing to go to option 2. Even though, like, I do agree with you, Danielle, board member
Yeah.
Sutton. That is.
I'm not opposed to that, but
Yeah, but I would be upset, but I mean, I do like the good faith and like, we're all in this together. I do like that, so.
and
And
really it
yeah.
may look just mathematically wise, 'cause that's where my brain goes,
Sure.
is, it might save us like $500 in the end or $1,000 in the end. And what is that really, and if those sports who did have less seasons have parents who are struggling, then that's a conversation that they can have with the AD and get that resolved. So I don't mind going with 2.
Okay. All right, so do we have anybody that would be willing to make a motion?
I move to direct the superintendent to prorate pay to participate fees for all student athletes by determining the average percentage of competitions scheduled in 2020-21 as compared to 2019-2020 for all sports as outlined in the attached documentation.
Or
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor?
You're going to want to do a roll
Aye.
call.
Roll call,
Angela.
okay. I will do a roll call. Simmons,
aye.
Zuby,
Aye.
Danielle,
Aye.
Shoeboy,
Aye.
Telto.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to our action item of approval of laptops for protective cases. Superintendent Walmsley.
Yeah, in the backup, the ESSER funds that were distributed by the federal, or approved by the federal government back in December under President Trump, have started to make their way to the local level. For Richmond, it equates to a total that we should be receiving from the ESSER 2 funds about $778,000, approximately a little bit more than that. These are one-time dollars. These are not structurally that the government's going to keep giving us this dollars under ESSER 2. There is an ESSER 3 that was just passed under President Biden, but the ESSER 2. So my recommendation to the board is we take a chunk of these dollars and do a one-time purchase of replacing, number one, the laptops that we have not yet replaced, which would be grades 10, 11, 12, and putting laptops in grades, and I just realized looking at it, it says grades 1 and 2. It's actually grades K and 1. We've already replaced grade 2. So we do 5 grade levels of laptops, replace the teacher laptops. Many of our teachers use them in the classroom simultaneously when they are doing virtual teaching along with the cameras that are there. Their laptops are from summer of 2015 is when they were purchased, so they are beyond their life expectancies. In addition, looking at replacing desktop computers, it would not only be for staff, teachers, administrators, secretaries, some in the transportation, a couple in the central office area, which would be the IT people, media centers, and technology. But also we have 4 labs. The elementary lab that's in the media center is the oldest of all our labs. They were actually moved from the high school to the elementary school. They're an all-in-one computer. They are probably nearing 10, 11, I would even say 12 years old, those computers. The other 3 labs were replaced when the board approved in the last bond, those lab replacements it would have been the summer of 2014. So as you can see in the backup material, the total cost to do all these with cases and carrying cases for those laptops that we needed, you can see the kind of the groups that we've assigned. The total cost to do this is about $442,000, $442,830.25. With the governor's line item of the budget, the supplemental budget that was approved by the legislature, 60% of our funds have not been allocated. So we would take the difference when the bills came in to pay, and it's more of a timing issue of how things get paid, to pay for it out of using the bond furnishing and furniture budget. And once those dollars would be released and back, we would just do a journal entry, if you will, to put them back into the ESSER and putting the money back into the furnishing and furniture budget. The reason why I'm asking that for approval tonight is you've probably heard on TV there is a computer chip shortage, and they are estimating that if you place orders, especially this large, you're looking at 3 to 4 months out. So placing it now, April, May, June, July, we're not looking at getting these till the end of July potentially. So we want to get them before the beginning of the school year. So the earlier we can get our order in place, the more likely we will to have them here for the fall. And so that would be my recommendation to the board. It would upgrade in the last 3 years, then basically we have upgraded our district technology 100%. From the classroom computers to the laptops that teachers and students use, to labs, etc. And then when the last series of the bond sells in 2024, that would be a time in that series that the board would look at. Part of that was technology replacement. We're going to need to begin looking at copier machines, and probably the laptops we replaced 2 years ago would be now at a point where they're starting to begin ending their life expectancy. Any questions?
So you're 101% sure that we're going to get the rest of that money?
We're going to get the dollars. It's just how the legislature is it was vetoed because they wanted to take some powers that the governor had to be able to close things and regulate things, and she line itemed that out, and the money was tied to that. But this is what the dollars are for, and we still would have dollars to continue purchasing the things that we need COVID related, such as I would like to use the dollars to continue our COVID aids through the end of the year. We have our substitutes for the end of the year. The COVID aids were planned to be April 1st. That's one of the areas that I'd like to use these dollars, because it's a one-time purchase. Basically, if you look at it, these are not positions that, unless at some point in the future the board wants to make them permanent, they were never intended to be permanent positions, but to help us get us through this. So, and the bills, when we look at when we're actually paying them, we're probably not paying the bill till July, August when we get the materials. So at that time, we should have a school aid budget for next year. We're supposed to have it by June 30th, and this should hopefully have been resolved. But the dollars are there in one account to make sure our bills are paid. It would just be a journal entry that we would move after the fact if need be.
Any more questions for Superintendent Walmsley? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent as presented in the attached documentation and approve the purchase of student and staff laptops, protective cases, and carrying cases from C-High Computer Products, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $309,060.25, for which funding from the 2020-21 General Fund and 2020 School Building and Site Bonds Series 1 is authorized.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Should I do roll call again?
For the
Board member-
dollar value, yes.
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 Simmons,
Aye.
Zuby,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Shoeboy,
Aye.
Telltale,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, we move to approval of desktop computers. Superintendent Walmsley?
It's the same explanation. It's just this is on the desktop. So the $2 total, the $440,000.
Any discussion? Okay, looking for a motion.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent as presented in the attached documentation and approve the purchase of student and staff desktop computers from C-High Computers, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $133,770, for which funding from the 2020-2021 General Fund and 2020 School Building and Site Bonds Series 1 is authorized.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. No discussion. I will do a roll call vote. Simmons,
Aye.
Zuby,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Shoeboy,
Aye.
Telltale,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. And that takes care of our business today. And we will adjourn our meeting at 8:22 p.m.